Mavericks with a 2-on-2. Bring it in off the right side. Mavericks trying to get a look on this one. Was Souter. Went over to the right side to Furry, and he scores! Furry shot, hit the goaltender, hit the ice, and then slow rolled in behind the goaltender. And the Mavericks will win it tonight.
From BLC Studios in Mankato, Minnesota, this is the Maverick Hockey Live Podcast, presented by Dunkin. With your host, Shane Frederick.
This is the Maverick Hockey Live Podcast, presented by Dunkin. I'm your host, Shane Frederick, and joining me today is Minnesota State senior forward and co-captain, Brendan Furry. Hi, Brendan. How are you?
Thanks, Freddie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you here. Minnesota State coming off their off weekend after being off to a 7-3 start, 4-0 in conference with 11 of 12 points. Got a little bit of a break last week, and this week you'll be hosting Northern Michigan. The Wildcats coming to town. How are you guys feeling after a week off? Was it nice to have a little bit of a break after 10 games?
Yeah, I think it's always a good one, especially after the start we had to the season. Being able to take a log off the fire and just rest the bodies and get ready for obviously a huge weekend this weekend. But we definitely took advantage of it and got some of the, worked on some of the things we needed to work on, and guys got their rest, guys that may have been banged up. So coming into this week, really excited. We know it's an important weekend and a chance to get huge, 6 huge points.
I asked Jake Livingstone this last week, and that was going into the break. You start off with the schedule that you guys have. What a grind. I've mentioned it probably on every episode of this podcast so far, Minnesota and Duluth and St. Cloud, and then into conference schedule. You don't necessarily have a lot of time to, tweak things and get things, you're learning along the way. It's like this baptism by fire. You just start off and, the coaches don't necessarily know exactly what the power play is going to be, or the penalty kill, or who's going to be paired with who, or what forward combinations are going to be. You're tweaking it along the way, but you don't really have time you don't get a full training camp to kind of set things into motion. And so is an off week good for a little bit of a reset that way, or did you feel like those things evolved in the right way over those first 10 games?
Yeah, when you go through a stint, especially with a lot of new guys on your team, you're growing to build your identity and kind of what makes Minnesota State hockey, the Mavericks. And having an off week like that, you're able to go and fine tune some things, or maybe coach went back and looked at a few things that he thinks we're maybe struggling on, or we need to enhance and get better at, and which we did. We got our work in. We were able to, go back and look at clips and mimic that in practice and work on things like that. The off week is really important. While all the fans are probably wishing we were playing,
right? Of course,
we're not just sitting back and just taking the log off the fire. We're still getting our work in, and like I said, getting the rest we need for some guys and things like that. But that off week is really important as we continue to grow and gain that identity. With our hockey team. Yeah,
and it just seems like that you feel like, I think, you've had seasons, and I'm trying to remember if last year was like this, where you've had really long stretches where you haven't had that break. Was that last year where you had, or did you have an early one? I'm trying to remember.
I'm trying to think when our off weekend was last year.
But it seems like sometimes you can go too long.
Yeah, sometimes you can just go and you're just like, you kind of just get into such a routine that it's just, show up, get your work in, go home and then get ready for the weekend, and it's just over and over and over again. So, having that off week, and I think at the important times too. I think I would say I think coach has a say in it when he's going through the scheduling and stuff at the beginning of the year. He knows that we had a pretty tough stretch there. Just kind of just going through it and making sure that you're just still on your dailies and taking advantage of that off week.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into a game week, or a week you have a series where you're game planning for your opponent, and you're whether you got guys doing mock power plays, mock penalty kills, you're just doing different things to try to prepare for that opponent. So I'm sure that off week probably helps you like self-scout a little bit too, and just kind of see what your even your own tendencies and things like that. I'm sure, and obviously the coaches and your video staff and everybody like that is doing that stuff week to week as well. But when you can kind of concentrate on it for a week, it gives everybody a chance to kind of re-examine where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Super important to go through those stages too. Having guys in different spots and different situations and things like that. Especially with our young guys, I think they're taking huge steps this year. So being able to throw them in different situations on different lines and different spots, really helpful for the coaches and the team to see kind of where everyone fits, and hopefully as we keep going along this road, we'll figure out the right mesh of our team.
I can imagine for those young guys, because some of them have had some really good starts to this year, but I'm sure even for the guys where they're feeling pretty good about things, it's still got to be a whirlwind, right? You just, for them, I'm sure it's just, when does this slow down just for a second so I can breathe? And, whether it's going well, and it's probably true for the other guys too, or it might not be going so well, or they haven't had a lot of opportunities to get in the lineup yet. I'm sure it's just a whirlwind right away.
Yeah. And you rely on your older guys in those situations. The guys that have been there, they've done it. They've gone through not playing in the lineup. They've gone through playing minimal minutes a night. You have to rely on those guys, and that's our responsibility as a leadership group to help them through those situations. And you see guys, our young guys in and out of the lineup here or there, and they're still making an identity for themselves. And that it's really just on us as not just the leadership group, but the older guys on the team, your Andy Carrolls and, Keto Rosies, guys like that, Josh Grohl, Dave, Celia, all those guys. And we know that they look up to us. So it's our job and our responsibility to make sure that we guide them in the right direction. Cause at the end of the day, it's our team, and we have to start pushing that bus in the right direction.
Did you have some guys like that you kind of relied on when you were younger? I mean, I know when you came in right away, you weren't playing, and you were coming off, it was a season that you had to sit out, but you also were recovering from surgery, and so once you did kind of get back into the fold, start practicing a little bit, and then getting a season in, were there some guys that kind of helped pave the way for you a little bit on that?
100%. You go back and look at that team my freshman year, the team of the unknown.
Yeah.
And you wonder what could have happened that year, but being able to look up to those guys, and I single out that senior class majorly. Michaelis, Toomey, Rivera, Gerard, all those guys. Being able to look up to them, and you've heard it 1,000 times from Hasty, the habits, our daily habits, and being able to just, when we get to the rink, throw everything at the door and just focus on hockey. And they were so good at it. They were, if it was a workout, it's 7:30 in the morning and middle of January, it's snowing, it's freezing. They brought energy, things like that. And, practice, it was like a game. And we practice like it's a game because it makes the games easier. So going back and looking at all those guys, they help push me in the right direction of what it takes to be a winner. I mean, like I said, it was unfortunate that it was the unknown, but that team was so good, and being able to watch them up in the stands and at practice and ask them questions, and it was so cool to me. It was kind of a year to soak in. I say it was the longest year of my life, but so educational at the same time. So I have guys like that, and I look back to times when I looked up to those guys, and I try to be that for, the younger guys right now, and to mimic that and to show them kind of what it takes to be a winner. And we've had a track record of success. So I hope they, just keep learning and keep soaking in all the information. And I think it just shows with that record that we've had, that track record, that I think if they stick with it, good things are going to come.
Did that surprise you when you arrived here and you saw the way they operated with that particular group and that particular team, and watch how that evolved, the subsequent years after that? But did that surprise you when you showed up? I mean, was it something that was different than what you had seen in your previous experiences in hockey?
Yeah, absolutely. When, college is different from juniors or anything like that. You maybe get it in high school a little bit, where it's the mimic, the younger brother of college, where you get 4 years with the same guys. But,
right.
With that in juniors, you don't get that. Guys are in and out, leaving, traded left and right. It's kind of like the hockey, the National Hockey League,
right,
and it's all over the place. But, when you get to school, and it's kind of a shell shock. It's really, I would say if you get to a point where coach just kind of just takes a step back, and if you can take over the team, he just kind of just sits there and lets the guys go on their way and relies heavily on that leadership group to push that team in the right direction. And I think you've seen it in recent years with, the 2 Frozen Four trips and, the championships that we've had. It's just the culture that we have here. And it starts with those guys and guys earlier, and Hasty set that standard for us. But even though he set that standard, guys have bought into that,
right?
And we just know that that's our identity, and I don't think we're gonna let that, that's not gonna change for us. That's just always gonna be who we are, and then it comes back to our leadership group pushing those younger guys in the right direction to show them what it takes.
I mean, I know this is Hasty's 11th year at Minnesota State, and every coach, when they take over a program, talks about culture change, changing a culture, trying to get things different. You see it in professional sports. You see it in college sports. Sometimes a cynical sports writer or two, and not that I'm not one of them once in a while, but we'll say, okay, we'll see, right? Everyone's going to say it. How do you actually establish that culture? How do you actually change it where you get to a point where it really does rub off on every player year after year after year? And, I can honestly say, just as an outside observer who's, but someone who's been around the program, it really did change. It did really, it really changed from top to bottom. And when you see that kind of carry over year after year, and have someone like you talk about, your experience as a freshman, knowing, then seeing the next group do it and the next group do it. And now you're in that leadership group where you're kind of, the caretaker of that, so to speak, and want to have that, make sure that you don't drop the ball there and that you pass it on to the next group. It seems like that's really important to the players for the Mavericks.
Yeah. And that culture is so important to us. And it's more of on a personal level to us. We really embrace that and soak it in and understand it's not going to be easy. It's tough. With Coach, he holds us to such high standards, but that's what makes us, the players, the group, the culture that we have here. And it's just been really cool to be a part of that and to see the growth and to take those, to get the first NCAA win and to take the step to the Frozen Four and to get to the national championship. Those things, we're just continuing to grow on what has developed from, the start of Hasty and what he's emphasized every single day. It hasn't changed. He might make tweaks and things here. Sure. Things change year to year, but that main set, standard that we have for Minnesota State hockey hasn't changed at all. And it's just really cool to be a part of that and to see, the growth every single year. So let's talk a little bit about the season for you so far. You have 7 points, but 5 of those have come in your last 4 games. Kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start point-wise. You averaged a point a game last year. Was it a struggle the first 6 games for you a little bit, or were you getting a little bit frustrated, not showing up on the score sheet? And I think you got moved up and down the line chart a little bit and trying to find ways to maybe help you out. Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah, it's tough. You want to come in and you want to do what you did last year. And I think a little bit it was a piece of humble pie for me.
Sure.
And I think that's okay for every player if they're able to admit that. So for me to, I think after it was, kind of the first 3 weekends of stretch, big games and stuff like that, you want to be on the score sheet. You want to be a part of that. And sometimes you try a little too hard to do that. And it takes away from what makes you good. And so it was kind of, I had to go down pit road to stop, change everything up and kind of just go back to the basics of what makes me good. And so did a lot of talking with Coach, and he's very, he's coaching me. It's tough, and it wasn't, and you saw it like in the lineup, you drop down and, I go to 4th line a game and things like that. And I'm not comfortable with that. And it's really, I kind of just try to put my personal reasons to the side for a little bit and just be there and try to be a good leader, even though it may not be in the position that I want to be in or the start that I wanted to have. Because I know, and we just talked about it, but those young guys look up to me and all the other leaders on this team. And so
So how you handle that's important.
Yeah, I think
too.
it's very important. And, you know, even it doesn't matter if you're a senior or a freshman, you're going to, you know, probably go through ups and downs, and it's not going to be the first time I'm going to deal with something like that.
Right.
Yeah, it was a little bit of, you know, a tough start. It's not the start that you want, but being able to get back on track, and I have had a lot of meetings, and I've been getting some extra ice in, kind of have a lighter school schedule, so I've been getting some skill work in and different things like that, just to kind of work on different parts of my game that I thought maybe I was struggling in at the beginning of the year. It's nice to see that, you know, the points and stuff are coming, but you know, the team I think is starting to trend in the right direction here.
Yeah.
We have 2 huge games this weekend against a really good Northern team that they seem to always get us at one point. So we know how important it is, and you can't take a weekend off in this league if you really want to hold that title at the end of the year.
Well, I think what's interesting, you mentioned, you know, maybe it's a little slice of humble pie, but, you know, you came in with, you know, a lot of expectations from the outside. I mean, I'm sure you had a lot of personal expectations as well, but, you know, being named a preseason player of the year in the CCHA, you know, getting a lot of attention early on. You looking at last year's play, you know, moving into a spot where you had, you know, an All-American who left, and you're, you know, possibly the person taking that spot on the line chart as a number 1 center. You know, that's just, you know, I don't know how much of that is a lot of pressure, but certainly you put all that together, and then you're a captain besides, you're part of the leadership group, you have those responsibilities as well. You know, it seems like that's just that's a lot to handle or try to figure out and sort out. And by the way, you're not playing, you know, the cream puff schedule to kind of ease into the season.
Right. And, you know, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't have pressure on me. I think it's something that's natural and it's okay to deal with. And a lot of it does have to do with perspective and how you're going to handle it, situations like that. And it's, you know, it was really cool to see when you get guys like Dave and Mo step up.
Yeah.
And take those, and I can kind of sit back and follow their lead. And, you know, it's like, and we talked about it, you know, freshmen finding their way. Well, I was finding my way.
Yeah.
You get that pressure, the expectations, you want to excel those expectations. You want to be beyond those expectations. And I think I was just had to find my way with the situation that I was in, being a leader and you know, with those expectations, trying to be a part of the team and help the team as much as I could. But it was great to see, you know, those guys step up, and I was able to maybe take a log off the fire and just follow in their way and see what they were doing and what made them successful. And I did that. And I think things are starting to come together right now, and hopefully we can just keep it going.
You know, and I don't know what your reaction was, but, you know, first 6 games of the year, you have 2 assists, and then you go through a game against Bowling Green, a team that you knew very well growing up and from your backyard, and you score the game winner in overtime. What was your reaction to scoring that goal in that situation? Sense of relief, sense of excitement? What was going through your head at that point?
Yeah, you know, and honestly, up to that point in the game, I had an okay game that night, and coach threw me out there, and I was kind of waiting for it. I was like, is he going to do it? Is he going to put me out there and, you know, in overtime? And, you know, like at the time, you got Dave and Mo and Libby and Keto and those guys that are hot. You want your hot sticks out there. And I totally get it. I understand. So I'm just sitting there patiently waiting, and I hear my number called, and it took, you know, 6 seconds when I was out there. So being able to just see the puck squeak through, and you knew when you have a monkey on your back, it's always a greasy one. It's always an ugly one. It's not a cute one. It's not a pretty one. And I think you could see it in my relief when the guys jumped on me. I was just kind of like, oh, thank God. It's like, it's about time. And you want to be able to use little things like that to feed off and to grow confidence and just to keep developing in that way, in that sense.
And then the next night, you go up, you fall behind, you score the tying goal late in the second period. And you guys end up winning that game, and had several penalties to kill off, I think, at the end of the game. That's what, as I think I mentioned to Jake last week, I was traveling and I was in Vietnam. I woke up in time to watch you guys kill 3 straight penalties to sealed off that game. But, you know, that's again, you score a goal in that game, and you got 5 points in your last 4, and just, you know, that weekend against Bowling Green must have really felt like you were, now things might be turning the right way. You got to do it the next week too, but you got to feel a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always good to do it against Bowling Green. I like that. It's a fun one. I always look forward to those weekends. But when the bounces start coming and it's doing the right things, it's always playing the right way. And we always say that the hockey gods will reward you for playing the right way. And it may not come right away. It may come weeks later and things like that. And that was kind of the emphasis I had from coach. And he told me to take a step back from just everything and really just focus on myself and what makes me good. And I thought I did that weekend. My practice habits are getting better. And it's just little things like that, your dailies and just making sure you get back to, what makes you a good hockey player. And like you said, it's always good to be able to have that success and to keep it rolling and to use it as a little bit of confidence and, to make some plays. And I think it's heading in the right direction. And, I have a really good weekend last weekend and, huge 6 points. Just hopefully, to keep it rolling.
What's it like for your team when you go from non-conference play to conference play? And, so much gets so much spotlight, especially this season with who you played in the preseason or the pre-conference season. People focus on that. Obviously, Minnesota is having a great start to the year. So is St. Cloud State. Minnesota Duluth, you took care of them pretty handily, and they haven't been quite as good since. But obviously, they're a program that can turn things around just as quickly. But then you get into conference play, and I know maybe the perception from some are just like, okay, this is a different level, but I also know just watching enough games over the years that these CCHA games can be a grind, and every team gets up to play you guys just as you guys would get up to play that early season schedule, and it seems like you're also like it just seems like they're all a little bit harder. Whether you're playing Bowling Green, Northern Michigan, Bemidji State, Michigan Tech, that's a grind of a schedule. Whether you're playing them here or going on the road,
right? I'll start it with fear no one, respect everyone.
Yeah,
that's kind of our mentality. And you go through. We split with the Ghosts, huge weekend for us. You'll take it. You get the huge wins with Duluth, and you get swept. And it is what it is. You got to move on from it, and then you move into conference play, and you have to understand that you've had a championship for 5 years in a row. Your target is this big every single night, and you know that they're coming. You're gonna get their best. Doesn't matter who it is. Anybody can beat anyone on any given night if you're not at your best. And that's our mentality, and we kind of keep that in the room, and that's what we want our team to understand and to know that you can't take a weekend off. Like we talked, the perception is that we have a weaker league, and it's simple. And but if you get in and you get out on that ice, it's a playoff game.
Yeah.
Your body is beat up after the weekend.
Right.
You know that you're getting hit every single time you touch the puck. You're going to have to get second and third efforts to get the puck. It's hard to score goals. You got to go to the dirty areas, things like that. So I think hockey's hockey. And at any given night, anyone can beat anybody, and it doesn't matter who it is. And you see upsets in the tournament all the time and things like that because the team, that may be the higher seed wants it more. And so that's what we try to emphasize around that room. And that's a part of our culture that, fear no one, respect everybody. And that's the mentality. And we understand that we just have to get done what we have to get done every single day to get us ready for the weekend.
Well, it seems to me, when you got swept by St. Cloud State, it had been the first time, I can't remember the exact stat, but it's been since.
It was so it was before I was even here.
It was 2018, did they say?
It was one of the weekends when Coach wasn't there, maybe, or something.
Oh, yeah. Was it at Bowling Green, perhaps?
One of them, yeah. It might have been the Bowling Green weekend.
Yeah. And
that's
when that happens and it's that rare, it can put a little bit of doubt in your mind, in your team's minds, and it can make other teams kind of go, oh, they're a little vulnerable now. So suddenly Bowling Green comes to town. They might think of you guys a little bit differently. St. Thomas, even though you guys swept Bowling Green, those were close. I mean, St. Thomas is getting better. They had you in a dogfight both nights.
Yep.
Tie game after 2 periods on Friday up there. You come back to Mankato, and it's a 1-goal game most of the game. So one, you're learning to survive those close kind of games, as well as understand that, maybe where your conference is at, and try to focus on what you think the conference is, as opposed to maybe what the outside perception of it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's you get swept, and it was kind of a shell shock for us. You go from what our record would have been. We were 2-2, so could have been a 4-2 record to a whatever we were, 3-3. Is that what? You were
3-1 going into it, then you ended up 3-3.
3-3. Yeah. So and then you look at it, and it's if you beat St. Cloud one game, it helps in the pairwise and different things like that. It was kind of just, we had to just flush it, and you got to just move on, and you have to understand that you can't change the past, and when things happen, you got to learn from it. And you go into league play, and you understand that they might think you're vulnerable. You got to reset. You got to get over it. You got to flush it, and you got to get back to work. And that's what we did on that Monday right after. I remember it was go time again. Like, that weekend didn't even happen. And sometimes it's good. It's good to get those, and it's good to get a little bit of a reality check. I think it was good for our program to understand that, hey, maybe we're not, I'm not going to say as good, but we're not there, and we need to fix some things, fine tune some things, and get back to our identity and what makes us good. So I was a good response the BG weekend, and then come back and to play a tough St. Thomas team. I mean, they're way, I would say they're more skilled, and they're hard to play against, and they competed, and we knew going in that we couldn't take them lightly. It didn't matter what their record was last year, where they finished. Rico's going to get those guys ready. They had 16 new guys, so it was like a completely new team.
Right.
I mean, we got to be ready to go every night, and with this weekend, we can take a huge step in the standings here, and especially with some games in hand. So this weekend's super important.
Yeah, Northern Michigan, they're 8-6. They are, they were, other than you guys, they were the other team to get some votes for first place amongst the coaches. I assume that meant they got Coach Hastings' first place pick, because you can't vote for your own team, but somebody else also voted them for first place in the league. So a lot of expectations on them, and what Grant Patolny's done there, he's done a good job. They always seem like they play hard, and just they might be the team that you're looking at in the standings, either right behind you or right above you, depending on how things play out going forward. But I'm sure that's you guys got to be ready for them.
Oh yeah, and then I talked about it, is you can't take a weekend off here. Getting swept in a weekend it's hard to recover from that. 6 points is a huge swing. So with having only four games right now in league and being at the top, we're in a good place to take a huge step this weekend. I mean, they're tied with us right now, I believe. And
points wise, I think, but they've played 2 more games.
Yeah, 2 more games. But that can change this weekend.
Sure.
And so we know that Grant's done a really good job over there, and they always play tough against us. It's tough. They're a fast, quick team. They like to score off the rush, and we've been emphasizing those things in practice, and really just getting back up to pace after the off weekend, knowing that we have a really tough weekend ahead of us.
Yeah, and and not that you want to look too far ahead, but after that, then you got Thanksgiving weekend, you go up to Michigan Tech, which is one of the tougher places to play, probably in the country. You talk about the CCHA. I think one thing I love about the conference, and if you're a fan of college hockey in general, it's just to try to go to these other barns and see games there. And I love Michigan Tech. I don't know what your favorite place to go play is. Maybe it's BG because it's in your backyard, but some of them are little bandboxes. Some of them are great atmospheres. Tech kind of has both of those things going for them. With the students, I don't know, with Thanksgiving weekend, maybe you'll be dodge a bullet with the students being gone, but the band. But when that place is rocking, it's rocking. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. And it's learning to win on the road and win in tough situations. Right. And maybe we haven't done a good job so far of that. Getting one in St. Thomas was big for us, having a huge response there in the third period. But I think we just need to keep taking steps. We have to understand at the end of the year, you got to win on the road and you got to win tight games.
Yeah.
We were able to do it last year, and obviously having a big piece of that in the net is huge for us. But everyone, I think, keeps talking about that in our situation there, and we trust our goaltending situation, we trust our defense, and we trust our offense here. We're just going to keep continuing to grow and to get better, and we're going to learn how to win on the road, and because we're going to have to at the most important time of the year.
Right. Well, good luck this weekend against the Wildcats. It should be, I would guess, a pretty fun atmosphere again in downtown Mankato. Maybe bring that up real quick before we sign off. But just to play in front of the crowds that you've played against here. I mean, you had a sellout crowd against St. Thomas in your last game out. Obviously, when UMD's here, when the Gophers are here, that's big. I imagine there'll be two pretty healthy crowds again this weekend. You guys got such a great schedule with how it fits into your school schedule when students are here and when they're not, which I'm a big fan of, because when that place is going, it's fun. It's
I would call it electric. It's something that we feed off, and we protect our home ice. We understand that it's important to defend home ice and to take advantage of those games at home. And the fans have been incredible this year. And I think looking at it, I saw something on Twitter the other day, but it was, our attendance is at something like 90-something% or maybe over 100%, but we're I think we're 12th right now in the NCAA in attendance for how many we hold, and it's just cool to see the city rallying behind us. And, we appreciate that so much more than they even know, and so when that place is rocking, we feed off of it, and I think they get to see a good show, because usually the outcome's pretty good.
Sure. Well, put on a good show this weekend, and really appreciate you coming in and being part of the podcast
Awesome.
today.
Thanks, Freddie. I appreciate it.
This has been the Maverick Hockey Live podcast presented by Dunkin. That's Brendan Furry. I'm Shane Frederick. We'll see you next time.